This is KQED San Francisco and KQEI North Highlands, Sacramento, and live online at kqed.org at 3 o'clock.
Good evening, I'm Judy Woodruff. On the NewsHour tonight, a cascading crisis. India locks down 1.3 billion citizens. The Olympics are postponed, and the rate of infection in New York skyrockets. We examine the latest in the COVID-19 pandemic. Plus, inside the epicenter, Italy's battle with the pandemic could be a warning sign of what's to come for the U.S.
This is grocery shopping during coronavirus pandemic of 2020. At least I was not putting coins in vinegar to exchange for food or medicine as they did in 17th century Ireland. I was also not at a plague stone that served to make the boundaries that should not be crossed either by inhabitants or outsiders. Still, this was unprecedented for California and US. I'm Ranjana. I live in the heart of Silicon Valley, Santa Clara County. I'm also a member of The Better Part, a TV producers organization. I'm documenting how we are faring under COVID-19 shelter-in-place conditions. Before the coronavirus outbreak, I had read about Wuhan, China, in connection with its Yangtze River trade, its Three Gorges Dam, its towmen, its barge shipping, and its very interesting street food scene. There were no ripples here as the epidemic was unfolding in China. We were in the midst of holiday season and its theme parties. Boa or no boa was an important question then. We were also training in the KMVT studio and planning a TV show with the Better Part TV production group. Our calendars were booked with training sessions, studio rehearsals, planning meetings, and lunch get-togethers after training sessions. The year was turning, some trees had begun to bud, lupines were blooming in preserves, orchids at home, and birds were arriving in pairs for a drink. Spring could not be cancelled. The virus was on the move though, and it found us transfixed, as if watching a tsunami unroll from a safe distance. It traveled in planes and cruise ships, then it crossed the Atlantic and came here. Several million people immediately lost their jobs because of lockdowns all over the country. All kinds of economic activity had stopped, and the stock market crashed. Just around St. Patrick's Day, to prevent large crowds probably, California was put under lockdown. Then everything closed. Other than some administrative places and some essential services like grocery stores, hospitals, and such. Just about everything. The studio shut down, the shows shut down, lives went indoors. We were all TV show producers, some with tons of experience under their belts. Others, like me, with a passion for the medium, trying to connect the dots. A natural question was what was happening to our lives away from the studio under lockdown? The Better Part members were asked some simple questions to answer in their video diaries. Val was getting ready to go to India as the coronavirus epidemic was acquiring a pandemic status.
500, India Foxtrot 12, 01. India Alpha Foxtrot 401, runway 03, cleared for takeoff.
My daughter Sharon and I were on a tour of India so that I could cross the Taj Mahal off my bucket list. We didn't know at the time that it was the beginning of a pandemic that would grip the world. Our last stop was Udaipur. When we arrived there, our tour guide was directed to take us to the Corona isolation ward. The journey by tuk-tuk seemed surreal. We couldn't believe it was happening.
We're having a very exciting day today. We're on the way to the hospital to be tested for the coronavirus. We're not really hysterical, we just think it's funny. But anyway, we'll let you know very shortly whether we'll be on the flight. Bye! We love you all, whoever you are. What's happening? Are we going in?
Yes.
Oh, crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it is. How you doing, Alison? What do you think? You look very nice. How you doing, Norma?
All right.
Yeah.
I can't breathe.
How about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I got mine on.
Oh, I see. Sharon, how do you feel about this?
I'm a little nervous.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you are. Oh, who did we miss? Sheila. How you doing?
I'm good at the moment, but
Yeah.
mild consternation.
It's a little bit of excitement. Okay, we just come out from being checked. We got the all clear. We have a piece of paper here with all our indications on it, and we just have to show it at the airport and they'll let us leave. So I will be home for my birthday, hopefully. Wasn't so bad. We're doing good.
Couldn't help wondering what was happening back home in California.
Here in California, gloved and masked, we were unrecognizable.
Here is Fu Tin wearing his HEPA mask that he got after his transplant. He's also wearing gloves, and he is going to take out the garbage.
We have now been sheltering in place for less than a month, maybe about 3 weeks. And I can't believe how different our life has been. We used to be fairly active. My husband and I are both retired, but I was very active in the Better Part, which is a TV production group. We would have meetings about once a week and studio shoots about 3 times a month. We're also very active in a soup kitchen that my husband and I go to. I used to teach jewelry classes. It's all very different now. We very strictly adhere to the shelter in place. We stay home pretty well all the time.
Hi, I'm Sarah Doxiadis from The Better Part. And as you can see, I'm ready for COVID-19. At least I have my mask on. Sometimes I also wear gloves if I go outside of the house. And of course we use lots of hand washing and sanitizer. Aha, this is the real me. Before COVID-19, my husband and I used to go for daily walks, often twice a day. I used to go to the YMCA 3 days a week to exercise, cardio, and muscle strength. I belonged to several groups that I would visit in person and participate, discussion groups, and also the Better Part itself. We're a video production group. And I would often have lunch and maybe see a movie with my best friend or with my husband, work in the garden, do a lot of reading, listening to podcasts, writing. I'm working on writing a book. I'd talk to my family who live far, far away in Florida, periodically online, and visit a lot of friends that I don't see often on Facebook.
This was a war requiring warlike efforts. There was a shortage of personal protective equipment, PPE. There was a shortage of masks. So Diane remembered her old sewing machine.
Once it was clear there was a need for face masks, I decided to dust off my old sewing machine and found out it really did not work very well. So as you can see there, my old Elna, it's about 40 years old. I took it into the sewing repair store and was able to get that fixed. So that's great, but I decided at the same time, the same center that fixed the old machine, I decided to go ahead and buy a new one because they had all kinds of bells and whistles I didn't have on the old one. So now I've got two machines. I will definitely donate the older one now that it's in working order. But I've really taken over my dining room. So you can see all the things that I've set up. So there's the pipe cleaners and a wire cutter that I need to use to make bendable metal across the nose area. Lots of spools and thread and measuring tapes and markers and sewing gauges. And you can see a lot of fabric there. Actually, all of that is new fabric that I just bought at the same store that repaired my sewing machine. And I also have some old fabric that I used on the first mask that I made because it took a while for me to figure out what pattern I wanted to use and what was the best fit. There's some lining off to the left, and I put on a little bit of non-woven interfacing fabric also, so it adds a little bit of protection across the nose and mouth area. But as you can see, I've also set up an ironing board and iron since I need that pretty frequently. So we're going to sew a lot of masks.
Hi, I'm Amy Ryman. Today is my bi-weekly shopping day. I am out in the backyard checking the weather. It's about 7:35. I'm getting ready to head out to my car and drive to my favorite store. I have my mask and my gloves ready to put on. Their senior hours are 8 to 9. It doesn't matter how early I get there, there will always be a line. Here I am, I'm driving to my favorite grocery stores. The street is really quiet. I'm listening to my favorite song, Dancing Queen, and I'll be there in a short while. Look like they just opened, and the line is quite long, but not too bad. So they start letting people in. The line is moving quite nicely, but people continue to get here. Here I am at the end of the line. It looks like they open 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. Yay! I'm gonna be the next one to get in. They're getting ready to let me in. They clean all the cart. The line is still pretty long towards the end. Okay, right now it's 9 after 9. And here I am with all my groceries. And you can see the line is all the way to the corner.
I did once try to go out and buy some groceries. I tried to leave my husband in the car. because he had a stem cell transplant and his immune system is not very robust. I wear a mask, I wear gloves, and the groceries, I try to do it as quickly as possible.
What's different is going out to shop. So going out to shop, it's best to wear a mask and gloves. And since I'm a senior, I get to go to some of the more quote-unquote privileged times of day, which means getting up early in the morning to go grocery shopping, usually once a week, waiting in a line 6 feet apart, going into the store where there are only maybe 20 or 30 people in the store, getting my groceries and leaving. And most of the time that's a pleasant experience. Sometimes people don't observe the 6 foot distance. Sometimes they let their little or middle school children run around and touch things and don't keep them under control and blow it off as, oh, they're just children, as if it's so cute, and it's kind of frustrating. I did take advantage of the situation to get my car updated a little bit. I have a new set of tires because tires on your car are essential. So a lot of my friends and neighbors, I think, are doing that.
We had just finished remodeling our kitchen about 2 weeks before the pandemic struck. So one thing that led to is we have a huge refrigerator now, and right now it's chock full. So we shop about once a week, or rather I give a list to my daughter and my son-in-law.
I did order some dehydrated foods that I use for camping from a group out of state, but largely we've been able to find fresh and canned and powdered produce and meats and other foods that we like just fine. So we have plenty of food on hand. Of course, there's the toilet paper rush that everybody talks about. And the speculation is that for most people, it was really more you're going to have your kids and your spouse at home, so you're going to need to swipe and wipe more often than you used to. I'm sure there are hoarders out there, but that explains a lot.
Now, it's tricky getting the supplies that I'm used to. I actually thought I was very smart by trying to do everything online, so that as I get older, I didn't have to go out to do a lot of things. But I was very annoyed to find that once the shelter in place edict came out, that whenever I tried to buy groceries online, I was always locked out. There were no more delivery times. So since I've been using online delivery for, almost a year, I was pretty annoyed. Another thing that we have tried was having some meals delivered. A good friend of mine called me up and asked me if I would like to be part of her organization's senior wellness food program. And this organization, the Asian Americans for Community Involvement, were delivering meals to seniors who were stuck at home during this shelter in place. So we have been receiving these really nice meals that my husband loves. And that makes it easier that I didn't have to cook 3 meals a day. So the meals came Tuesday to Friday, so there were 4 meals. Although my husband eats probably half of my meal, so I still did a little cooking to cook things that I like.
I had a Zoomer at home who came during spring break and could not travel back to school. Along with car batteries, spirits also had to be kept up. Some evenings, we drove to where we used to hang out before coronavirus. This is Saturday evening, and the whole place was deserted because of COVID-19. It's surreal to see Saturday evening looking so bleak and empty in the avenues of Santana Row. All the shops were closed. Only some of the restaurants were open for curbside pickup. There were barely 10 or 15 individuals walking. It was just out of this world, out of some sci-fi movie. We are now headed to Los Gatos downtown. It was good to get out of the house and see things for oneself. Were the shops open? Were the restaurants open for any business at all? It was good to look at something else besides same old under lockdown conditions. Grace missed producing shows, missed hosting shows, but she never forgot to turn on her phone camera when she went on her walks.
Hello, fellow shelter-in-place friends. Here I am in solitary confinement, all by myself. Although I do feel that we're all alone together during these very trying times. I have a lot to say about our current condition, but without the trusted teleprompter, I can barely manage a 1-minute video. So no worries, you won't have time to get bored listening to me talk. Nowadays, since the gym is closed, I like to get exercise by walking around the pond at the Sunnyvale Community Center. It's easy to keep social distancing there because there's very few people, but I do encounter quite a few feathered friends there. Take a look at my walk around the pond.
We actually hardly ever get out of our condo. My husband used to exercise downstairs in our gym, but we decided that it's probably not that safe. So we've built a little gym in our living room here, and he does his exercises here.
I really have a hard time because I miss the social interaction with friends and neighbors. I have a group of neighbors here, about 5 of us. We get together once a month and go out to lunch. One of the 5 women was planning commissioner for many years, and she's also very active even now with the Sunnyvale Historical Society and Museum. 2 of my friends live a little bit further down the street, so the 3 of them would come and meet me here for our hourly walk. And sometimes we even make it the girls' day out. After an hour walk, we come home, change, and go to Valley Fair to shop and to have lunch. So that we haven't been doing because we cannot be talking, staying 6 feet away from each other. Also classes that I've been going to, like line dancing and ukulele jamming, they have all been canceled. And although they have virtual classes, but it's not the same. So I have not been participating in those classes.
I do miss visits with my friends, with my neighbors. Fortunately, I have my husband to visit with, and as they say, I'm lucky that I'm interned with someone whose company I enjoy. I hope he says the same thing. And a group of neighbors for a while were meeting on the street 6 feet apart every afternoon to kind of get together in person and wave. And that is pretty much stopped now, at least for most of us, because it turns out that, we're not supposed to be gathering in groups, even if we are respecting the 6 foot distance. But it was nice while it lasted.
I'm also cooking a lot at home. I made some banana walnut muffins, I made some pot stickers, and I even made some steam buns.
In a way, it was all right for children to come home, spend some unscheduled time with their families, make meals together, eat well, listen to family lore, laugh together, just be together. Baking bread became an affirmation of life. Food became a way to exercise creativity and keep the sentiment up. I cooked elaborate meals. We all did. More board games were played. Art, music, and plants became the go-to cures for incredulous kokoro, heart, mind, and soul.
The biggest disappointment because of this virus outbreak is our trip to Switzerland. We have booked a cruise from Amsterdam to Basel, Switzerland for June, but because of this outbreak, it has been canceled. So we don't know when we'll have a chance to go back and visit family and friends whom we have not seen for years.
Well, our family is spread out, and unfortunately in two centers of where this epidemic is taking place. We live here in Santa Clara County in California, where there has been the highest cases of COVID-19. We live in Cupertino, and my daughter lives in Los Altos, which is about a 15-minute drive away, with her husband and 2 children. My daughter is a physician, an oncologist, and her patients are very susceptible. They're high-risk COVID-19 patients, so she is very concerned about them. And I know that her hospital is busy, preparing for an onslaught of the COVID-19 cases. They're busy canceling elective surgeries and moving their patients so that the COVID-19 patients can use the oncology ward, which has a lot of single rooms. My children are off school. The schools are canceled, and they have online classes. Fortunately, my son-in-law works for Google, and he also is working from home. My 2 sons are in the East Coast. One son is in Brooklyn, and he is really right in the middle of this epidemic in New York. So every day I wake up early to watch the news to see how many new cases and how many new deaths there are in New York, and I get really worried about them. They told us that they don't go out at all. They're lucky enough to get food delivery, and he can work from home. He's an architect, and my daughter-in-law is a teacher, and of course schools are closed. They have 2 young children. They also have their schools closed, so they're all at home. They said that they don't even go to the park anymore. My older son was in New York quite a bit because his 2 children are in New York, and his wife was starting a new job in New York. When he went back to Pennsylvania, he was very worried. He's a cardiologist, and before starting work, he knew he was in an area where there were many cases of COVID-19. So he called into work to say that he had been in New York, and they wanted him to be tested right away before going back to work. So he went in to be tested, and he tested positive. So he is now being quarantined at home and awaiting the quarantine session. He is also working. They have set up a telemedicine so he could talk to some of his patients. Now I'm worried about him because he has a bad cough, and it seems like Even after a week or so, he still doesn't seem to be on the mend yet. So I worry about them because they're far away and because they're in areas where there's a lot of the disease.
Jerry had to stay in a hospital for reasons other than COVID-19.
Hi, my name's Jerry Oliver, and I'm going to tell you my experience with the coronavirus quarantine. My experience began in February. In February, I was diagnosed with a cancerous nodule on the lower left lung. This required surgery, so we were referred to a surgeon. We went to visit the surgeon, and the surgeon explained the surgery. She explained that it was not a simple surgery, it was major surgery. She would have to go in using a camera inside and her tools and remove that section of my lung, and along with it to remove some of the lymph nodes in that area. The lymph nodes had to be diagnosed as to whether they contained any cancer cells. If they did, I would then have to go to more treatment. So the surgery being set up 2 weeks from that date, we started a countdown. Every day, it was 1 day closer to the surgery. 2 days before the surgery, we got a call from the surgeon, and she said all elective surgery had been postponed for 2 weeks. So the 2 days from then turns into 2 weeks and 2 days. The surgery was rescheduled for April 1st. At that time, we asked the surgeon how long it takes to analyze the lymph nodes, and she says 5 to 6 days after the surgery. So this puts the time when we would be able to know for certain whether or not I had to have more treatment out actually 3 weeks, because we wouldn't be able to get that information until the 6th or 7th of April. So we started our countdown again. As it got close to the time for the surgery, we talked to the surgeon, and the surgeon said, by the way, there's a new restriction. Nobody can have visitors, even family, while they're in the hospital. Because this meant that I would have to be saying goodbye to my wife at the front door to the hospital and not seeing her until I was wheeled out 4 days later. So on the day of the surgery, we went over to the hospital, parked in front of the hospital, said our goodbyes, and I walked into the hospital. When I came out of the surgery and could speak again and understand what was going on, the surgeon came in and said the surgery looked successful, and when the lymph nodes were analyzed, we would know for certain. So I spent the next 3 days in the hospital waiting for things to develop to the point where I could go home. So after the 4 days, I was sent home, and we waited another 5 or 6 days. We called the doctor's office, and we got the word that the lymph nodes were clear. So I am, for all intent and purposes, cured. But it was a very traumatic experience. From this, we did learn, though, that we can survive most things that come along in life. Thanks for listening to my story. Bye.
I have one more thing to tell you about. One of my cats needs fluids once a week because he also has some other kidney issues, skin cancer, and internal cancer, and yet he's actually having a good quality of life. But I do have to take him once or twice a week to the vet. So now when I go to the vet, I see a sign on the front of the door that says, hey, sorry, but we'll come to you. Give us a phone call from your car. We'll come out and get your pet. We'll take your pet in and do whatever procedures. We'll give you another phone call, let you know what's going on and if there are any results or anything we need to discuss. And then you'll be handed over to pay up over the phone. So here we are at the vet. This is where he is right now, sitting in the back of the car in his carrier. Hi, Rexy. His birthday was on April 5th. He turned 19. Time for me to climb back in the car and wait. Here I am at the vet on a rainy Monday, waiting for my cat to come back to me, and here he comes. What are the questions you usually have to ask when somebody brings a pet?
We usually ask how they're doing, if they're active, energy's the same, are they eating well, urinating, defecating okay, any vomiting, diarrhea, coughing, sneezing. We try to get the type of food that they're on, and the amount, because that's important, because some foods that are grain-free are not, as we know, healthy for the cardiac systems of a lot of dogs. So we want to make sure that that food is not grain-free. And that's about it.
Okay. Thanks for bringing him back.
I now have more time to catch up with my sleep, first of all, and also spend more time out here in the garden. You can see we have lots of flowers and bushes and fruit trees that I could spend time tending it. And in the back of me here, I have what I call this plant hospital. Actually, those are clippings that I prune and put it in pots. They live here for months to get rooted. So friends really love this plant hospital, plant clinic. I also have many bird houses here, and some of them are very well used. And right now, that one that you're looking at has a nesting inside already. The parents have been going in and out feeding the young. So once the fledgling has gone, then I have to take it down and clean it up. So there's always a lot of work in the backyard. So now I have a lot of time to really attend to it, which is the silver lining to this whole tragic event.
Every year, a color is picked for the following year. When Pantone picked Classic Blue for 2020, did they have any idea how this year would turn out? Industries are shut due to lockdown that translates into low pollution in skies and rivers. So mountain ranges are visible from a distance and rivers are running bluer. Nature is reclaiming some spots it had lost. There is more time to pick up a brush and paint a picture or tend to the garden. And that's a silver lining to this coronavirus cloud. With new problems come new solutions. And museums from home, I think, is going to last and extend our reach. Still, cabin fever is hard to deal with. We have all been under this lockdown for some time now, and looking at my phone app did not help. So I went back to the school tracks to take another look to see if they had opened. They hadn't, but near the inanimate charging stations, I came upon this scene. Hair still grows, lockdown or no lockdown. With the salons closed, it was okay to get a haircut wherever one could. We have come to the end of our coronavirus diaries. Susan's son is better. Jerry is healed. Better Part members are busy creating new shows, sometimes on Zoom. Celebrations have gone virtual or on car windows. Main Street economy is trying to recover from this crisis. Wall Street was jawboned by Federal Reserve's decision to buy corporate assets. Things have opened, and my phone app has caught on to that. But it's not over yet, and there are fears of a second wave as we open. Things are also different. Long lines to keep customers apart, and disinfecting stations. In the times right after coronavirus lockdown, my most dreaded activity was going out to buy groceries. Standing for a long time under the sun or rain. But things have changed. There is shade now. Interspersed with gloom and doom of coronavirus, there were moments of joy. We learned to ride it all together, follow new protocols to keep us all safe. We may yet look towards the future, absorbing the lessons this interlude has taught us, with an eye to creating a safe and sustainable future.